First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. The weather's a little bit rough out there, so hope you didn't get too wet when you came in. Tonight we're going to talk about the Water Pollution Control Authority, about the regionalization of the treatment plant. And what we're going to do is I'll do a brief introduction. I'll go over some points, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dick Whalen. If anyone has any questions, we have cards up here. Please feel free. Chris, if you can just go walk around and maybe distribute some cards if people want to fill them out. Go ahead and ask the questions. Dick will moderate. So when the questions come up, I have some folks here. That's a panel from Greater New Haven that can help answer any questions if we go into details. We did this at Benell, and it actually worked out pretty well. So again, any questions you have, feel free to ask, and we'll give you the answer. When we finish, and if you have any more questions, if you'd like to ask me anything, I'll be here. You can personally come up to me and discuss this with me. I got to tell you an interesting story. We initially proposed regionalization earlier on in the year. We've been talking about it for years, but we never had actually a proposal to present to the council. Some of the council members were against it before they even saw it. You know, I kept telling them, keep your powder dry until you actually see the proposal so you can question it. But the vote did occur. It was 7-2 to approve regionalization by the town council, and it was a bipartisan vote. The council then built in some of the revenues from the sale into the budget for last year. And the prior year, they also built in some revenue from a land transaction to actually transfer the land under the treatment plant to the WPCA authority. WPCA authority is a separate entity in the town of Stratford. The town council is actually the authority over that facility. They're the ones that set rates. The mayor, my position, we can only make recommendations, but the town council actually approves any activity at Water Pollution Control. And we're basically the administrators. We assist in the billing and also with some of the management. But it's the town council who ultimately is the Water Pollution Control Authority. One of the reasons, some of the questions that people will ask, and let me just back up a little bit. After the council approved the regionalization, they approved the budget. There was a petition drive to take this to a referendum. We were consulted by legal counsel that stated state statute that said it wasn't allowed under state statute. We don't know where the genesis of that law came forth, but it was there. We ended up denying the petitions only because state law said you couldn't have a referendum on a Water Pollution Control Authority. We were sued by some residents in town, and the judge ruled in our favor. We believed that we were right, and we disagreed with the judge, and we tried to appeal her decision, and there wasn't enough time to do it. And as opposed to bothering everyone going through the appeal process, we said, look, let's just go for a referendum. So we actually embraced it. So for the first time in the history of Stratford, residents are going to have an opportunity to go to the polls and vote whether they want tax relief and lower sewer rates. If you vote yes, that'll occur. If you vote no, it won't. But the decision lies in your hands, the voters. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on November 3rd. It was around August that I was actually interviewed by a reporter from the Connecticut Post, John Bergeson, and he was talking about the decision by the judge and any concerns about it. And I said, you know, John, the interesting thing about this whole issue is that you know that no one ever contacted me, anyone from the public, not one citizen called, wrote me a letter, requested a meeting, zero. So I found that kind of interesting. Now the reason why you have a town council is you elect your representatives to make decisions on your behalf. They're the ones that actually spend the time diving into the issue, studying it, asking questions, and then making decisions on your behalf. But now we're faced with a referendum, so it's ultimately going to be you, the voters, that will decide the outcome of whether or not you want lower sewer rates and lower taxes, or if you want to vote no and remain status quo and have higher sewer rates and higher taxes. So one of the reasons why we proposed regionalization is we were approached by Greater New Haven to have a discussion about whether or not we wanted to regionalize. And they went over some of the benefits of regionalization, which we listened to. And we were approached by the city of Bridgeport, who does not have a region. They're a sole entity that allows Trumbull to tap into their sewers, but they're not a region. Trumbull contacted us, the town of Monroe did, also Aquarian had reached out to us. They had a proposal, they actually wanted to privatize it. And we had two other private companies come forward, have meetings with us, United Water and Viola, they're big players in the sewage treatment plant business. And they came over and we listened. As your mayor, it's my job to listen to people that have proposals that could benefit taxpayers. So we vetted them and we listened, and we decided that privatization was not the way to go. Regionalization made sense, and then we looked at New Haven, and it made a lot of sense. And that's why we ended up proposing it to the taxpayers. I would never propose anything that was not beneficial to the taxpayers. The biggest complaint I do get from citizens, and you're probably not surprised, is my taxes are too high. So as your mayor, we make proposals as far as operations, efficiencies, cost-cutting measures, and we go to public hearings, and you know, education is always a big debate because people advocate for more education funding, but there's only so much we can afford as a community, so it's all about trying to balance the dollars in the community, also recognizing the fact that we do pay a lot in taxes. So what we've been doing is looking at efficiencies, making some taking some cost-cutting measures, but looking at our operations. We had a group come in that was looking to take over our recycling. We talked to them, and we ended up not moving forward with it because it just didn't make sense at this time to entertain that. And but we listened, and some people criticized me for that. And I said, look, you have to listen because things aren't the same. Everyone's chasing dollars right now. The state of Connecticut is in a fiscal crisis. We all know that. GE's talking about leaving, insurance companies are leaving, jobs are leaving. When I go to chamber meetings now and I ask how many people know somebody or want to get out of the state of Connecticut, half the room now raises their hands. Half the room want to get out of Connecticut because it's too expensive and they don't like the environment that they're in right now. And there's not a lot of opportunities. You know, we focus on education for our kids, which is great, but when they graduate school, they can't find a job. That's a problem. And where are they going? They're going where the opportunities are, where taxes are lower and jobs are available. So they're going down south, they're going to Texas. It's no surprise. You all have friends and family that have done the same thing. So knowing that, we looked at what we can do in Stratford to change things. So cost-cutting measures are important, efficiencies, we're always looking for them. But also the important thing is how do we grow our tax base? How do we take it from the residential homeowner to increasing commercial property or commercial values so that more of the tax burden is shifted to commercial entities as opposed to residential? So we've been doing that, we've been rather successful for it, and we had one company that just moved here, and they made a comment, they said on the email that Stratford was an oasis in a desert in a state where the environment is acidic for businesses. What a sad state of affairs when a comment is made about our state like that, but the upside is they're saying that Stratford is a place that they want to do business, is a favorable place, is an oasis. You probably never heard that before, but we have a lot of good going on here. We have FedEx coming to town. We have a resolution on the airport. Main Street's fixed. Our parks look great. We have the Two Roads Brewery. Connecticut Distributor is expanded here. Nova Pasta expanded here. So companies not only staying here, but they're expanding here, increasing jobs. And we have new companies moving in. So that's the good news. With our grand list, which is our total valuation of all properties in town, it went down 2.5%, which is a function of the real estate market. You know, residential values have gone down. In total, though, they went down about $119 million. Commercial properties, however, went up $72 million. That's good news. So you're starting to see the shift. So what we want to do is make Stratford marketable. We want people to come here, not only for commercial purposes, for jobs, but we want people to live here, raise their families, and grow roots here. But more importantly, we want people to stay here, especially our senior citizens who are on fixed incomes, and also hardworking families that are struggling. So I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. This is why regionalization makes sense. New Haven proposed to us about regionalizing. And some people call this an asset or a crown jewel or a gem. You've probably seen that. Oh my gosh, I mean, we're calling a sewage treatment plant a gem. How misguided are we? The gems in this town of Stratford are you, the citizens, not a sewage treatment plant. And it's not an asset, it's actually a liability. We pay money on debt. That's why your rates went up. So New Haven proposed taking the debt of $37 million off of Stratford's books and putting them onto their books. You would still pay for that debt in your rate. But the good news is Stratford no longer has a debt on their books. Bond rating companies like that, it would help us with our rating because they would look favorably upon that debt reduction, and it would go to New Haven. We'd become part of a region. We'd still own the facility, but we'd own it in a regional approach. We'd have 2 seats on the board of directors. Our rate always stays in Stratford. If, for example, if New Haven has improvements to their facilities, Stratford ratepayers are not subsidizing or supporting it. If we do improvements in our district, in the town of Stratford, you, the ratepayer, would pay for that. So we have rate protection, which is very important. We'd receive $16 million in cash, which we want to use for tax relief immediately, to go to you, the taxpayers, to help control costs. We would receive a pilot, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. So instead of paying taxes on their property, they would give us $220,000 the first year, then $420,000 thereafter. We'd have a smaller footprint of government. For some of you who don't like government and like to see it minimized, we're actually doing that. We would lose 16 positions. The employees would be offered jobs over at the New Haven region. We have 12 people that have already applied for jobs. It is a union over there. It's an AFSCME union. Their health benefits are less. Their pay is more. So we did take care of the employees. They would have a place to go. And those that can't get jobs at WPCA, we would absorb them into public works. Any new entities that would be accepted into the region once we regionalize has to be, this is an important thing, has to be improved by all the towns in the existing region. For example, if another town wanted to enter the region and Stratford didn't want them, and we voted no, that town would not be allowed entry into the region. So right now, all 4 towns in the New Haven region have voted yes and want Stratford in the region. The benefit also of regionalizing is economies of scale. That's where the real savings is. The New Haven region operates almost like a municipality. However, they only do one thing, sewers. They actually have full-time engineers, full-time staff that just focuses on sewer systems. We don't have that right now in the town of Stratford. Economies of scale is basically buying in bulk. For example, when you buy more of something, you get a lower price. Chemicals is a great example for treatment. We get a discount on that. We'd also save on administrative costs. So when we looked at this, looking at operations, it just made sense from an expense side and a revenue side. We're no longer in the business. And by the way, we almost lost the plant in a hurricane that last came to Stratford. We're inches away from the plant being flooded. There was no plan in place to save that plant. It would have been a disaster. I prefer having someone else run it full time. That's their job. They're professionals in it. Let them do it. The idea of taking the facility and letting a professional run it was very attractive to me. And right now, as I said earlier, the town council is the main authority over it. There's no plan. We have an aging infrastructure right now, meaning the sewer pipes under the road. Yes, the facility, the actual plant itself is modernized, but we have a lot of water infiltration in the outlying pipes. It's about 189 miles of pipes. When we regionalize, the one benefit to you, the taxpayer, is that as a larger region, we qualify for more grant money to pay for that outlying pipe system. Right now, that doesn't exist, which means you, the taxpayer, has to pay for any repairs or replacement of these pipes. So from a long-term perspective, it makes a lot of sense. So with that, we'll accept any questions. Dick Whalen's the moderator. Dick, thank you so much for offering your services this evening. If you have any questions, please fill out the cardboard sheet. We'll answer the question, and again, I'll be available after the forum for any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay. Again, my name is Dick Whalen, resident of Stratford for some 30 years now. Where all those years have gone, but they're too fast flying. And I volunteer on a number of activities within the town, and currently serve as vice chairperson on the town's redevelopment agency. And by way of introductions for the panel, I'm going to ask each of the panel members to introduce themselves after John, because
John Harkins, Mayor of Stratford.
Gabriel Varka, the Director of Finance and Administration for the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority.
Gary Zerlich, Director of Operations for the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority.
Aaron Bowman, Counsel for the Town of Stratford.
Good evening, Tom Scroy, Director of Engineering for Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority.
Thank you, gentlemen. And by way of the format for tonight, as has already been indicated, I think most of you have been given cards, but if you don't have one, there are question cards right here for you to draft any questions that you might have relative to this proposal. You can turn those in to Chris Badaki here at the table, who will then give them to me, and I will make every attempt to read them, so please write reasonably legibly, okay? And as far as you know, whether you're for or against the particular point that's covered tonight, we just ask that, you know, you kind of manage the response. The idea tonight is to have a healthy and honest and open exchange, and to learn more about what this proposal is about, and to really answer all questions in the time that's been given. So let's be courteous to each other. Okay, so with that, why don't we begin? So the first question is, did we speak to Bridgeport and Trumbull about joining together?
As I mentioned earlier, Bridgeport and Trumbull did request meetings with us. We had the discussion. Bridgeport has a lot of different issues than we do. Their system is not separated, being that there's stormwater and sewers combined. They have an aging infrastructure. They have a lot of issues right now. They did privatize the management. They actually have an outside company run their sewer system. They no longer do it. We did talk to Trumbull. It would be very expensive for Trumbull to even tap into our system, and the estimate we had was about $90 million that Trumbull would have to pay. it would probably be an engineering marvel, but if they did, that means we'd have to expand our sewage treatment plant to handle that additional flow, and we'd also require an act of the legislature to regionalize. Right now, we don't require that with New Haven. They could expand if they want to, and that's why New Haven was a lot more attractive. They're already established. The two other abutting towns have separate issues, and they just were not a good match at the time.
And the next question is, New Haven is facing directives to bring their plant up to standards to reduce pollution and effluents into the sound. Assuming the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority has to upgrade and bond to do so, does not that debt become part of their overhead and get apportioned among all the members?
I actually, I'm going to turn this over to Gabe Varka to my left, but I actually addressed this earlier with that any improvements within the community that's necessary, the community would bear the cost of that in their own rate. Our rate would be determined by a separate cost of service study, and we would not subsidize an improvement in New Haven, but I'm going to turn this over to Gabe to further elaborate.
Exactly what the mayor said. I mean, we have over 20 years, we have about $400 million of construction that takes place in regards to our current accepted long-term control plan and our plan upgrades. We have about $68 million of construction on the ground right now at the facility. As we move forward and do our construction and set our rates, it's really for the expenses allocated just to the New Haven ratepayers for improvements at the New Haven plant. The same thing as the mayor had stated will take place in Stratford in regards to any upgrades that need to be built into Stratford's plant or their collection system will be part of the cost of service study and built into their own rate. There'll be some shared management costs, which actually will be less than if you were standalone. Because as he said before, we have our own operations, we have our own engineering, so we actually are better handled to deal with the everyday business of being in the wastewater field.
Thank you. If the no side wins, why can't rates be based on water usage? Our sewer rates are so much higher than other towns. Shelton pays, I believe, $195, and some of their sewage goes to Stratford.
Some of the residents, particularly in the Pine Rock Park area, pay the same rate as Stratford does. I'm not sure what their rate is anywhere else in the city of Shelton if it goes through their system, but anyone that is tied into our system, including Bridgeport, they would pay the Stratford rate. The rate is $450 right now. If we did regionalize, the rate would actually drop to $425, so you'd see immediate savings of $25 in your rate. Rates are going to go up either way if we regionalize or we don't. They go up a lot less by regionalizing. That's another reason why we propose this. The flow rate is something they actually use in New Haven. We would keep our rate flat for a number of years here in Stratford, and New Haven did say that they were going to look at turning it over to a flow system. We do have a flow system for our commercial entities right now, meaning commercial businesses or industrial users. They are on a flow rate. That would remain, and it's a percent of what their water usage is. You know, earlier, and if we did go to a flow rate, that would actually benefit a lot of seniors. I know some are actually snowbirds. They don't live here full time. A lot of times a senior may only have 2 or 1 person in a household. So if it was to a flow system, they could see a significant drop in their rate.
Okay, thank you. Sure. And another panelist has joined us. I wonder if you could introduce yourself.
Hello. Apparently, I'm going to have difficulty. My name is Isabella Schroeder. I'm with Arcadis and have been assisting in the evaluation of the regionalization. I don't know what the Trumbull rate is off the top of my head. Oh yeah, because Trumbull's flow goes to Bridgeport. Their rate's higher than Bridgeport. Bridges over Bridgeport's $5.90, 96 cents a CCF. So it is flow-based. Yes.
Thank you.
Shelton, I don't know about.
Is it true that the New Haven Water Authority is now being sued for violations of the Federal Clean Water Act as a result of discharging raw sewage into Long Island Sound.
We've been served with a lawsuit in regards from a developer who the GNH and the City of New Haven were served as part of this lawsuit. Seems to be that's an issue between this developer and the City of New Haven in regards to work that they did not get. We actually are underwater from the EPA and the DEP, so is Stratford's facility. We have a agreed to long-term control plan. We have an agreed to consent order with the EPA, and the lawsuit actually is what we believe to be frivolous. We finished our audit. We're not counting any material aspects in regards to it. We're actually moving for dismissal. So we'll watch that play out, but we think it has actually less to do with us than some politics that have to do with the city.
On the topic of politics, the attorney that filed the lawsuit is actually one of the larger contributors to the No campaign.
This next question actually has 3 questions on it, so I'm going to ask them separately. What are the costs to Stratford to regionalizing?
The only cost we're incurring right now is through negotiations on the contract. It's actually a living document still, so we're going back and forth on it. We were about 90% complete. We had anticipated closing in June. So the only costs that we really incurred were the costs for legal fees and for contractual work. Everything else is a benefit. We lose the debt, we lose the liability, we're out of the business, and we received $60 million for tax relief. Earlier I stated all the benefits, so the costs are minimal to the benefit that we're actually receiving from the regionalization.
Thank you. The second question, if the Stratford plant needs repairs, who pays?
You, the ratepayers, pay that, and we had mentioned this earlier. Any repairs to the facility stays in Stratford, likewise with any other community. So if New Haven does their upgrade, the ratepayers in New Haven pay for it. If Stratford requires an upgrade, we pay for it. Main reason we're doing this is to get the grants for the outlying infrastructure, the aging pipes. It needs attention, it has to be addressed. You, the ratepayer, will pay for it. If we regionalize, we can get grants to pay for it, which means that you, the ratepayer, would not pay for it. So that's a huge benefit for regionalization. The pipes have to be addressed. Your rate will go up if we keep the system. If we regionalize, we can get grants to pay for the outlying infrastructure.
And I think the third question was just answered, but I'll read it just for since it was submitted. If New Haven or any other member needs repairs, who pays?
The respective community where those repairs need to be made.
Okay, thank you. And that's, at this point, all the submitted written questions that I have, but certainly if there are any more, we'll very much enjoy entertaining them.
This is actually, I'm going to just, I'll make a closing comment, but this is actually a big deal for the town. It's a huge benefit. The town of Stratford, for the first time in my life, I've lived here over 50 years, is on the right track. You see it. The train station's been improved. The airport resolution is behind us. That's been a bone of contention between the city of Bridgeport and town of Stratford my entire lifetime. And by the way, the town of Stratford never owned the airport. I saw an advertisement from the No campaign saying that we've been through this before. We sold the airport to fill a budget gap. I found that pretty interesting because the town of Stratford never owned the airport. I actually called up the historian of Bridgeport to confirm that, and I talked to other people at the airport that have been longtime users. We never owned the airport. So you just can't say things that are not factual, and when you ask a question about it, they don't know the answer because they're making it up. I have a problem with that. I met with one of the individuals from the No group, and his comment to me was startling. But he said to me, you know, Mayor, he goes, you don't understand perception's reality because facts don't matter. Well, ladies and gentlemen, facts do matter to me. I represent over 50,000 people, and we base our information, our decisions on facts. Not perception, and not politics, but facts. That's why we're doing these forums. We're available. I am concerned only that there is a lot of misinformation out there right now, and people are being misled in a number of ways, and, you know, I was handed a flyer today. You know, as they always say, figures don't lie, but liars figure. Get your facts, always call us. The only thing that I find astounding is a lack of interaction with some folks. I mean, the fact that no one's contacted my office. I did a couple open houses. Even then, I had just a couple people ask me questions about it. So I don't know how much people are paying attention to this. I've written a number of editorials and letters trying to inform people. I know there's been mailers trying to get the facts out to individuals about the benefits of regionalization. And again, we're not going to propose anything that's bad for the town. This is a huge benefit for the town. We had one employee recently, we had a $1.5 million workman's comp claim that the town had to settle. It's expensive to run that facility. If somebody can do it better for less, why not? And I talked to an individual like later this afternoon, and I said, when you make decisions at your house between two cable companies, which one are you going to use? Are you going to use the one that gives you less and is more expensive? We're going to give you the one that gives you more that's cheaper. He looks at me and goes, I'm going to take the one that gives me more and is cheaper. I said, it's a perfect example. And we do have regionalization right now. At the town of Stratford, we don't own buses, but we have 2 seats on a Greater Bridgeport Transit District. So we're part of a board that does buses in the area. And the benefit to that too is that they qualify for federal and state grants to buy buses and minivans. We also have a Bridgeport Regional Planning Agency, which many of you probably don't know about, but the elected officials from the city of Bridgeport and surrounding towns of Fairfield, Easton, Monroe, and Trumbull, and of course Stratford, we're all members of the Bridgeport Planning Agency. We actually pay some dues as taxpayers, they all do. But the benefits of being a regional planning agency is the amount of grants we get. And Dick Whalen had mentioned earlier that he's vice chair of the redevelopment agency, which we just created a couple years ago. And their task is to take older properties that aren't paying taxes. We're foreclosing on these older industrial buildings like the Mercer Fuel Tower we just ripped down, contract plating, eyesores that haven't paid taxes in decades. We're foreclosing on them, and we're able to get money through the Bridgeport Planning Agency for site assessment and remediation. Mercer Fuel Tower was over $700,000 to take those towers down and remediate the soil. And we're going to get it back on the tax rolls, and we're going to sell it and redevelop it. That's a good thing for the town. We lose an eyesore, and we make a property that wasn't productive. But we couldn't have done that if we weren't in a region to get a grant. Traffic studies are done, streetscapes are done. We're Stratford Avenue right now. We're going to have streetscapes down Stratford Avenue. That's coming through the region. Exit 33, we're looking at doing a full interchange there. That's coming through the region also. That was $24 million approved for that. We couldn't have done that without a region, so it's not local taxpayer money. It's regional grant money. We're availing ourselves to benefit the citizens. We're doing a traffic study over by Sikorsky Aircraft up in the north end. I mean, traffic is a nightmare up there when the shifts are getting out. So we're looking at ways we can do it better and maybe realign some of the driveways to some of the businesses. But that's the benefit of regionalization. Our libraries regionalized, they share books. Our fire department, we have a hazmat unit right now in the Stratford Fire Department that is shared throughout Fairfield County. So we do a lot of services right now through regionalization that you're probably unaware of, you haven't seen. And the reason why is because it doesn't make sense for us to do any of those individually. And right now you're hearing about the state, how they're pushing regionalization to help save money because sometimes it makes sense for communities and sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then you don't do it. But it really depends on the town, the city, whether it suits them or not. So regionalization makes sense sometimes and it doesn't other times. It depends if you're a rural community or a city. But the point of the matter is, as funds are drying up and tax dollars are becoming scarce, we have to do more with less. And that was one of the reasons why we promoted this, because it made sense fiscally and it also makes sense from an operational standpoint. If we can do something better for less, we should absolutely look at it and do it. So that's the reason why we're doing the regionalization of the sewage treatment plant. So I hope you support it. Again, if you have any other additional questions, Dick, do we have any others? Or?
I have no other written ones now.
Okay.
Have you had any?
But I'd be more than happy to answer questions afterwards if you'd like. What's that? Sure. You got to speak louder if you don't mind. You want the mic?
No, that's okay. When you spoke about the costs to New Haven, if they were to have to upgrade their plant, the cost to New Haven would stay with New Haven.
That is correct.
Do you mean it stays with the city of New Haven, or do you mean it stays with the currently constituted Greater New Haven and is apportioned among New Haven and their constituent members as presently constituted?
No, that would stay in the city of New Haven. And the same goes for the town of Stratford.
But it would, I think that what you're trying to get to is in regards to the other constituent municipalities being the ones that are actually connected to that plant. So when we say the New Haven, we mean the New Haven wastewater treatment facility and collection system. So upgrades in that plant itself would be paid for by the ratepayers in the city of New Haven, East Haven, Hampden, and Woodbridge. Now those expenses would not transfer over to the Stratford ratepayers.
So that if in the event that you should have to upgrade the way Stratford did a number of years ago, you're saying that that would still get apportioned only among, doesn't it become part of overhead that goes to everybody?
No, because the construction costs and the cost to improve the collection system or the plant itself are only allocated in the cost of service study for the people that are actually connected to that facility. So that's why there would be two separate rates. The rates are very similar. Right now, the average user in New Haven pays $447, and Stratford's rate is $450. However, under the basis of the calculation for CCF consumption, our minimum user's rate is $289 a year. But it's really based on who's connected to that wastewater treatment plant itself.
Also, you know, depending on who you talk to, it's one of those topics where some people understand a little bit more than others. We found that business owners understand it pretty quickly because their job is to run a business. The Stratford Chamber of Commerce did endorse this. The only dissenting vote was Stephanie Phillips, who's a council person who also opposed it, but everyone else voted in favor of it because they saw the benefits of it. And that was big, because I tell you, if this does not pass and we don't regionalize, the impact will be you will have higher taxes, higher sewer rates, and less services. That's just the reality of what we're looking at. And if that's the case, that's fine, we'll manage it. But I've heard some people say, you know, don't let the mayor scare you, don't, you know, let them tell you these things, it's not true. That's a reality. And if we don't do it, we're gonna have a $9.5 million hole, our bond rating will suffer, and services will suffer. And, you know, we've done a good job right now with getting our parks cleaned up, with maintaining services. Our police department, 2 years in a row, the crime rate has gone down. Our fire department is now an ISO rating 2, which is very unusual. It's a very good rating for a fire department. I don't believe we've ever had that in the history of our town. EMS is doing great. We're really on the right track. Economic development, right now we're kicking it. Everything stops. And, you know, my concern is that we did this in the state. We've got businesses fleeing our state right now. The last thing I want to see is Sikorsky Aircraft start talking about leaving. And I don't want our current business owners to leave either. And I don't want our residents to leave. That's the biggest concern. So, you know, it's up to you. So hopefully we'll get your support and you'll vote yes. So again, if anyone has any questions, I'll be here. Are there any other questions from the floor? In the back?
Yes, I have a question. Even before the lawsuit that came up in New Haven,
Yep.
I'm curious, Mayor, why did you choose New Haven for us to regionalize with, considering a lot of what I'm reading indicates that they have had other problems with the state, you know, pollution into the sound, and I know that their infrastructure is an issue. Now, I gather from what this gentleman is saying that we in Stratford would not be responsible for that cost. But I know that our people here at the WPCA and people I know on like the sound commissions are very concerned about that kind of pollution and why we would join with somebody who has that kind of guilt. Thank you.
Well, first of all, you know, I guess the devil's in the details. You know, Stratford's under a consent order right now. I don't know if you're aware of that, as New Haven is. New Haven is operating legally. They're in constant contact with DEEP. They have different issues than we do here in Stratford, but Stratford's under an EPA consent order. And a lot of water pollution controls are, but we legally operate, we're doing well. Being part of a region, and the reason why New Haven was attractive is they are an existing region right now, and they have the towns of Woodbridge, Hampden, and East Haven that are involved. And I don't know if you saw the comment from the mayor of Hampden, but he called it a home run for the city of Hampden. We called Woodbridge up, and Woodbridge knew nothing about sewers. It was kind of interesting because they're out of the business, because it's someone else does it. It's almost like a utility. It's almost like your cable or gas or water. But they didn't even know anything about it, but they were happy with it. East Haven was happy with it. So their experience was very positive. That was very attractive for us.
Oh, did you talk to anybody other than New Haven?
Yes, we did. I mean, we've had discussions with New Haven, and they're satisfied also. They have different issues than Woodbridge does in Hampden. And, you know, earlier it came up about, did we talk to Bridgeport? We did. It just wasn't a good match.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean other towns within the group. I meant, did you discuss
Yeah, earlier, I don't know if you were here, but I had mentioned that the city of Bridgeport approached us, the town of Trumbull and town of Monroe. They have different issues. That wasn't favorable to the town of Stratford. If Trumbull did connect to Stratford, it'd be very expensive for Trumbull. I believe the cost estimate was about 90 million, but we'd have to increase capacity in Stratford. So I guess the question is, where are we going to expand to? You know, we have a nice greenway there. We have an animal control facility. Where are you going to put it? It has to go in the water somewhere in the river. I mean, trying to site this thing is not going to be easy. So what sounds like it's not complicated or simple is actually very complicated. And right now there isn't a region, technically a region between Bridgeport or Trumbull. So we'd have to create a region, which means we'd have to spend money on administrating it, trying to get legislation passed, a special act to approve it. We don't need that through New Haven. It's an existing entity that's run pretty well that we'd be entering. And the important thing was between privatization and regionalization is that privatization is a completely different animal. They're beholden to shareholders, but we listened, but it wasn't a good match for us. What was attractive about New Haven is that we're still going to control the facility. No one has majority in the board, everyone has a minority position, and the board works well. And I compared it similar to the Bridgeport Regional Planning Agency or the Transit District. They all work well, and they benefit from the grants they get that helps taxpayers not have to pay for it, but you get federal and state grants to help pay for some of the things that they do. So that's very attractive for us for Stratford. This outlying infrastructure is going to cost millions. If we can get grants to pay for that as opposed to passing on to the ratepayers, that's a good thing. And having the rate go from 450 to 425, you're going to see immediate relief right there.
So you're saying we could not get grants on our own?
We could, but you can get a lot more grants as a region because you're a larger entity. That's a fact. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Is the no vote irrevocable?
Yes, the deal's off the table. So, I mean, once that happens, it's no. If the town decides to go no, that's it. It's status quo, business as usual.
And no possibility in the future of change?
I doubt it. I mean, if through all the work that we've done and due diligence to get to the point that we did, and then the voters say no, it would be very unlikely. You're welcome. That was a good question, actually. All right, anyone else? All right, okay, I hope everyone has a good evening. Again, I'll be available afterwards if anyone wants to come up and ask me a question. Dick, thank you, and I'd also like to thank the panel for being here tonight at Stratford High School.